to the city of Salt Lake City.
This was the scene in June of 1995 as Salt Lake City learned they would be the host of the 2002 Winter Olympics. Crowds in Washington Square celebrated all day long as members of the big committee celebrated in Budapest. The stage was set.
Then the whirlwind began.
The state had 7 years to get ready, expand infrastructure, build every venue, and prepare for the rush of those from around the world to descend.
Today, Salt Lake City stands ready to mobilize the resources of this nation.
But just a few years into the process, there was a problem.
In a release statement from Switzerland, Frank Joklik, the president of the Salt Lake Organizing Committee, apologized. The fund paid out several $100,000 in tuition for 6 IOC relatives.
In 1998, word of several scandals broke.
Meanwhile, Intermountain Healthcare is also defending its actions. In 1994, IHC provided free surgeries and medical care for 2 associates of the IOC.
We certainly have a public responsibility to ask questions.
The scandal tainted our bid.
There are also the shocking allegations of multi-million-dollar bribes.
And the decision to give Utah the games.
We've pledged our full support to be as forthcoming as possible.
10 IOC members ultimately resigned or were expelled for accepting money and gifts. The local committee was also left without leadership until
well, but he's going to be inside here.
Mitt Romney stepped up to right the ship.
They'd be radioing up to the top of the mountain saying...
With the games back on track, it was time for the torch to start its journey.
Lance Armstrong and Muhammad Ali hoist up the Olympic flame for all to see.
But just before it could start making its way across the country, tragedy struck. The events of September 11th, 2001 were just 6 months before the games were set to kick off.
I carried this flame in honor of my heroes.
Right now, given the sense of seriousness and loss in our country, I think it has a more profound meaning. It connects us with the world.
The symbolism of the torch shifted from one of tradition to one of unity.
Organizers have been asking people impacted or victimized by the attacks to carry the torch. People like Norman Wallstrom of Kaysville.
There are more countries than ours that were affected by September 11, and I think we need to do what we can, not just as Americans, but as inhabitants of this world, to come together a little bit.
I'm just heading straight for Deer Valley right now.
Focus on security around the games was also heightened.
Security officials have long feared that this is the place where international terrorists might try and make a name for themselves in 2002.
But in the final stretch, milestones were being hit.
Every one of our permanent venues is done,
with tens of thousands ready to volunteer. The Olympic cauldron was driven down I-15 and placed ready for the flame. Finishing touches on places like the Utah Olympic Park, Rice-Eccles Stadium, Snow Basin, downtown, and many more were done. And the crowds, well, they came in droves. From February 8th to the 24th, the Games hosted 2,400 athletes from 78 countries, with the world watching. The Games went smooth, and when all was said and done, there were millions of dollars in surplus, with our Games largely being considered to be the most successful up until that point.
Perhaps you haven't read the press clippings, but you guys got rave reviews.
And while today we stand again at the beginning of this process, in 2002, we were asking the exact same question.
Are the Olympics coming back here?
It could happen. We could do it well. We'd do it even better than we did, which I think almost everyone in the world agrees was the best ever held.
The best ever held. That's the ending sentiment from 2002. I think, Bob, you were actually the person that asked that question. Are the Olympics coming back? You were featured in there. Carrie was featured in there. Scott McCain was featured in there. So we have a long history here at Fox 13 of covering the Olympics, and I think we'll continue to have a long history, if you catch my drift. Hopefully, anyways, you can see by my vintage garb as well that it is pretty exciting to be back at this point. Bob Kelly.
Yeah, I like it, Spencer. I was going to comment on that jacket. That is a classic.
Yeah.
Looking good on you.
Well, and the wonderful thing, too, Spencer, is what is old, or what was old, is new again. And to have been there for that first experience was just unbelievable. It brings back so many wonderful memories. So thank you so much for that look back, Spencer.